There are truths that soothe, truths that guide, and truths that are woven like threads into the fabric of our everyday lives. Yet beyond these familiar fibers lies a single truth so powerful, so quietly disruptive, that when glimpsed even for an instant it can unravel the illusions that bind us. This is not the sort of truth one learns from textbooks or hears proclaimed in the noise of everyday chatter. It is a kind of truth that presses against the edges of your awareness in the still hours of the night, when the world is quiet enough for you to feel the question pulsing underneath everything you know. What if reality itself is not what it seems? And more unsettling still, what if the life you are living is but a reflection of an illusion, a mirage cast upon the screen of existence, while something deeper and infinitely more enduring waits behind it? To approach this truth is to walk into a mirror and realize the glass was never solid to begin with. It is to notice the cracks in the stage set and to feel the scaffolding of reality tremble, revealing that the scenery you mistook for permanent was only ever painted backdrops. And yet, there is no despair in this recognition. Quite the opposite. For to see through illusion is to remember that what is fragile and fleeting is not the limit of what you are. To realize the illusion is not to lose the world, but to find yourself at its source. The ancients spoke of it in whispers, cloaking it in symbols and myths, afraid or perhaps respectful of its capacity to upend ordinary consciousness. Philosophers circled it, poets glimpsed it in ecstatic visions, mystics surrendered into it, and scientists, whether knowingly or not, brushed against its contours and equations that hinted at dimensions just beyond the grasp of measurement. It is the truth that dissolves the sharp boundary between dream and waking, between observer and observed, between time as we count it and eternity as it breathes in silence. The illusion that wraps our daily lives is not necessarily malicious. It is more like a cocoon. It shields us, distracts us, and provides structure, much like a theater play allows the audience to forget their own worries for a time. The illusion makes traffic lights real, deadlines urgent, the exchange of money meaningful, and even emotions, anger, joy, longing, feel like unshakable truths. We live inside it because to navigate life without it would be paralyzing. And yet, those who dare to peek behind the curtain discover that this cocoon, however intricate, was never meant to be a prison. It was meant to prepare us for transformation. Imagine for a moment that reality is a great tapestry. From the front, the picture looks coherent and detailed. We see forests and skies, the movement of human lives, and the seasons turning. But if you ever walk around the back of a tapestry, you see not the picture, but the knots, the hidden threads, the mess of colors crossing one another in strange and unexpected ways. The back of the tapestry looks chaotic, even meaningless, until you understand it is precisely this invisible side that holds the visible image together. The truth that shatters illusion is like turning the tapestry over for the first time. The neat patterns of life no longer seem quite so absolute, but in their place you glimpse the deeper architecture, the unseen interweaving of forces and consciousness that sustain everything. This is why so many who encounter it feel as though they are waking from a dream, not the kind of dream that vanishes at dawn, but the dream of taking shadow for substance, mistaking the flicker of firelight for the sun itself. Plato spoke of the cave, the Buddha spoke of Maya, quantum physicists whisper about entanglement and the observer effect. Each is a finger pointing toward the same moon, though the finger itself is not the truth. What matters is the act of turning your head upward and realizing that the night sky is wider, deeper, and more luminous than anything you had imagined while staring at the cave wall. The significance of this truth is not confined to cosmic abstraction. Its practical weight rests in how it can transform the way we live. To see the illusion for what it is does not mean abandoning life, but rather engaging it with fresh eyes. The struggles that once felt insurmountable begin to dissolve, not because they vanish, but because they are seen in proportion to the greater reality behind them. It is like realizing that the storm you are standing in, with its rain and thunder, is part of a larger climate system, which itself is part of a planet spinning through the vastness of space. The storm is still there, but you are no longer crushed by it. You are instead oriented toward the greater whole, carried by the knowledge that you are not merely a fragile self battling forces outside you, but a participant in a boundless, interconnected unfolding. And so this one truth is both unsettling and liberating. It strips away false certainty, leaving you naked before the unknown. But in that exposure you find a strange kind of freedom. like a seed cracking open, losing the safety of its shell, only to discover it was always destined to become something more expansive, more alive. To shatter illusion is to be reborn into the wider truth that reality is not fixed, not separate, not alien. It is alive with consciousness, and you are not merely within it. You are of it. This is the threshold upon which we now stand. To cross it is not to abandon the world, but to see it as it truly is, a play of patterns, a dance of light, an unfolding mystery that you are not apart from but inseparable from. The truth waits not in some distant heaven, but right here, embedded in every heartbeat, every flicker of awareness, every breath that passes unnoticed until you pause to realize it is the very rhythm of existence moving through you. The question, then, is whether you will turn away and retreat into the comfortable familiarity of illusion, or whether you will step forward, even trembling, into the brilliance of what is real. For this is the one truth that can shatter the illusion of reality, not to leave you empty-handed, but to return you to yourself in ways you could scarcely imagine. To speak of a truth that can shatter the illusion of reality is to step into a territory where words themselves become both bridges and barriers. Language is a scaffolding upon which we construct meaning, yet in the face of the ineffable, words tremble, as though aware that they can only point and never contain. Still, we must begin somewhere, and so we turn to the core themes and concepts that orbit around this great unveiling, like planets circling a hidden sun. These themes are the quiet pillars upon which the entire edifice of the illusion rests, and by seeing them clearly, we begin to feel the scaffolding loosen. At the heart of the illusion lies separation, the sense that there is me in here and world out there, that I am a bounded self peering through the windows of my senses at reality that is indifferent, external, and other. This illusion is powerful because it provides a framework for ordinary survival. It lets us navigate, defend, and strive. And yet, it is precisely the sense of separation that gives birth to fear, to loneliness, to the ache of incompleteness that shadows so many lives. The truth that shatters illusion begins by revealing that this separation is not ultimate. It is a useful appearance like the lines on a map, but not the territory itself. Beneath the lines, the rivers flow where they will, the forests spread beyond boundaries, and the sky makes no distinction between here and there. Interwoven with separation is the illusion of permanence. We treat the structures of our lives, our identities, our possessions, our ambitions, as if they were solid and enduring. Yet even the mountains erode, rivers shift course, and stars themselves burn out in silence. Everything changes. Everything flows. When permanence is clung to, suffering blooms, because the inevitable tides of change wash away what we have mistaken for eternal. But to glimpse the deeper truth is to see impermanence not as a thief, but as a composer, orchestrating a symphony of transformation. The falling leaf is not the end of the tree, but part of the cycle that nourishes its roots. The loss that feels like death may also be the soil from which rebirth grows. Another thread in the fabric of illusion is control. We labor under the assumption that if only we plan carefully enough, accumulate enough knowledge, or exert enough will, we can bend life entirely to our desires. But control, while seductive, is a fragile dream. The universe unfolds with a complexity so vast that even the most intricate calculations fall short. A sudden storm, a stray thought, a chance encounter. Each can redirect the course of life in ways no plan could predict. The truth that shatters illusion shows us that control is less like a hand grasping the reins and more like a surfer riding the waves. Power lies not in domination, but in attunement. The surfer does not command the ocean, yet by aligning with its rhythm, they are carried farther than force alone could ever take them. Behind all these illusions, separation, permanence, control, lurks the most beguiling, the illusion of identity. We spend our lives constructing a story of who I am, a patchwork of memories, roles, preferences, and fears. We cling to this story because it offers stability, a thread to follow through the labyrinth of existence. Yet, when we peer deeply into it, we discover that the self is not a fixed entity but a process, a flowing river of experiences and interpretations. Neuroscience hints at it when it shows that consciousness has no central command but arises from countless neural firings. Philosophy gestures toward it when it asks, who is the one thinking these thoughts? And spirituality points to it when it speaks of awakening as the dissolution of ego into the vastness of being. The truth that shatters illusion reveals that identity, while functional, is not fundamental. Beneath the mask of I, there is a spacious awareness that cannot be bound by name or story. These illusions are not arbitrary. They are the architecture of human perception. They are lenses crafted by evolution and culture to make life manageable. But just as a lens both clarifies and distorts, these illusions clarify enough to let us function, while distorting enough to obscure the deeper reality beneath. To live within them is not inherently wrong. In fact, it is necessary. The danger lies in forgetting that there are illusions at all, in mistaking the stage set for the entire play. The one truth that shatters illusion is not a rejection of these lenses, but the realization that they are transparent, and through them, if we look carefully, we can glimpse the infinite. Consider how these themes interlace. Separation breeds a hunger for permanence, because a self cut off from the whole fears its own dissolution. Permanence fuels the craving for control, because to maintain what seems solid requires resisting the natural flow of change. Control reinforces identity, because we cling to the idea that I am the one steering, planning, choosing. Each illusion supports the others, weaving a net so convincing that we scarcely realize it exists. Yet the moment one strand begins to unravel, when separation softens, or impermanence is accepted, or identity is questioned, the whole net begins to dissolve, and the truth beyond shines through. What, then, is this truth? It is not a formula to memorize or a creed to recite. It is the recognition, visceral and undeniable, that beneath the play of appearances, all is one, that the self and the world, the subject and the object, the fleeting and the eternal, are not two but one fabric, shimmering and alive. It is a discovery that consciousness is not trapped within a skull, but suffuses reality itself, and that the boundaries we cling to are like chalk lines drawn on an infinite sea. This truth cannot be fully spoken, only pointed to, felt, lived, but once touched, even faintly, it rearranges everything. The ancient sages tried to convey it in metaphors. The wave realizing it is the ocean. The dreamer waking to find the dream was their own mind. The drop of dew recognizing the sky it reflects is also the sky it belongs to. Modern science, in its own way, brushes against it with theories of quantum entanglement, systems thinking, and holographic principle. Each is an echo of the same recognition, that what appears fragmented is whole, that what appears temporary is eternal in its transformation, that what appears separate is indivisible. The implications of this truth are vast, and we will explore them in greater depth. But for now it is enough to hold this awareness like a flame in the dark. It may flicker, it may be doubted, yet even a flicker reveals that the darkness was never absolute. To know this truth is not to escape life, but to step more deeply into it, aware that every gesture, every breath, every moment is both fleeting and infinite, both illusion and reality intertwined. When a truth is too vast to be reduced to definitions, it seeks shelter in story. Humanity has always known this. Before equations and doctrines, we had myths, allegories, and parables, images and tales that smuggled the ineffable into forms our imaginations could embrace. To speak of the one truth that can shatter the illusion of reality is to invite not only abstract thought, but also symbolic narratives that act as mirrors, reflecting facets of this truth in forms both familiar and strange. Consider first the allegory of the mirror itself. Imagine a man who has lived his entire life within a house of mirrors, each wall reflecting him back at himself. For decades, he comes to believe that reality is nothing but infinite versions of his face staring back, fractured, sometimes warped, but always himself. One day, he notices a crack in one of the mirrors, and through that slender fissure, he sees something beyond, a sky, vast and blue, stretching without end. The mirrors had given him a sense of self, a sense of orientation, but they had also imprisoned him. The crack does not destroy the mirrors. It simply shows him that they are not the whole. This allegory whispers to us that our identities, our roles, even our cherished narratives about who we are like mirrors, useful, reflective, but never the whole of what is. The truth waits just beyond the glass. Another symbolic tale comes from the ocean. Picture a wave that rises from the sea. It feels its shape, its height, its force. It identifies itself as this wave, distinct from all others. And yet, as the tide shifts, it crashes upon the shore and vanishes. From the perspective of the wave, this is a death, a disappearance. But from the perspective of the ocean, nothing was lost. The water simply returned to itself, the rise and fall only a gesture of something vaster. Here the illusion is individuality, mistaken for finality. The truth shatters this illusion by reminding us that while forms appear and vanish, the essence, the ocean of being, remains. We find another echo in the ancient story of the phoenix. The bird, radiant and magnificent, builds its nest and sets itself aflame. To the onlooker, this seems like annihilation of violent end. But from the ashes, the phoenix is reborn, renewed, transformed. The illusion is that destruction is ultimate, that endings are final. The truth embedded in the phoenix myth is that life and death are threads of a single weave, that transformation is the only permanence. The fire does not consume, it transfigures. Let's also recall the parable of the dreamer. A person sleeps and dreams they are a beggar wandering through a cold and unforgiving city. The hunger in their belly feels real, the sting of the wind undeniable. Then suddenly, they awaken to find themselves in their bed, safe and warm. The dream vanishes, yet the emotions linger, teaching them something about both vulnerability and compassion. In this parable, the illusion is the dream mistaken for the whole reality. The truth is a recognition that life itself may carry the same character, vivid, convincing, but ultimately not the final layer. To awaken is not to dismiss the dream as meaningless, but to recognize its place in a wider continuum. Symbolic narratives also surface in sacred geometry, those intricate patterns that mystics and mathematicians alike have revered for centuries. The circle, for example, has no beginning and no end, a symbol of unity and eternity. The triangle, pointing upward, suggests aspiration, the ascent of spirit. Pointing downward, it suggests grounding, the descent into matter. When combined, they form the star of interconnection, reminding us that the material and the spiritual are not opposed but married. To trace these shapes is to enact a story without words, a tale of harmony hidden within structure. The illusion is that form is random, chaotic, disconnected. The truth is that even in form, a deeper order breathes. One of the most enduring symbolic stories is that of the cave, spoken by Plato. Prisoners chained in darkness see shadows flickering on the wall, mistaking them for reality. One prisoner escapes and, after the blinding agony of adjusting to light, sees the sun, the true source. When he returns to tell the others, they reject his words, preferring the comfort of their illusions. This allegory, perhaps more than any other, captures the poignancy of truth. To awaken is not always to be welcomed, for illusions are familiar, and the truth can feel like fire against unaccustomed eyes. Yet for the one who sees, there is no going back. In Eastern traditions, a similar narrative emerges with the story of Maya, the goddess who spins a veil of illusion. She is not portrayed as evil, but as a divine artist, weaving the patterns of existence so that consciousness can play within them. The illusion is not a trap, but a stage, inviting us to experience, to learn, and finally to pierce through the veil. The truth, when revealed, does not negate the beauty of the play. It shows us that the play was always part of a larger dance of consciousness. These symbolic narratives, whether drawn from myth, parable, or geometry, converge on a single recognition. What we take to be solid, permanent, and ultimate is only one layer of a much larger reality. The mirrors, the waves, the phoenix, the dream, the cave, the veil, all are stories crafted to awaken something within us that cannot be fully captured by explanation alone. They are like keys slipped into our hands, unlocking doors that we may have forgotten were even there. And when these doors open, what spills through is not despair, but wonder. For to realize the illusion is not to find emptiness, but to discover fullness beyond measure. It is to see that the world is not less real for being illusion-like, but more extraordinary because it is both appearance and essence, both mask and face. To live within this awareness is to walk with reverence, knowing that every person you meet, every tree you pass, every breath you take is a symbol in its own right, pointing beyond itself the vastness that animates all things. The one truth that shatters illusion cannot be fully spoken, yet through these stories, it can be tasted, glimpsed, felt. They remind us that reality is layered, that meaning is hidden in plain sight, and that awakening is less about finding something new than about remembering what was always there. The stories, symbols, and philosophy surrounding the one truth that shatters the illusion of reality may feel lofty, even distant, like stars glittering far beyond reach. Yet their true value lies not in remaining abstract, but in being woven into the fabric of daily life. The question is not merely what this truth means, but how it can live through us, how it can reshape the way we move through our mornings, our relationships, our work, and even our struggles. For if truth remains only an idea, it risks becoming another illusion. But if truth is embodied, then its transformative power becomes visible in the smallest of gestures. To integrate this truth begins with perception. Most of us wake each morning with minds already tethered to the machinery of separation and control. Lists to complete, roles to fulfill, identities to defend. But what if, before stepping into the day, we pause to breathe and remember that these structures, while necessary, are not ultimate? The simple act of watching one's breath, the inhale and the exhale, becomes a radical reminder that we are not separate entities, but participants in a shared flow. Air enters, becomes part of us, and leaves to nourish another. The illusion of isolation weakens in the recognition that we are literally breathing each other into being. Integration begins here, with awareness that reality is porous, interconnected, and alive in every instant. The implications ripple into our relationships. When we hold too tightly to the illusion of identity, we reduce others to roles, friend, rival, colleague, stranger, and miss the deeper truth of their being. But when we remember that beneath every mask is the same ocean of awareness wearing different waves, compassion arises naturally. Conflict does not vanish, but it softens. A quarrel with a neighbor becomes less about me versus them and more about the interplay of two waves within the same sea. This shift does not absolve us of boundaries or accountability. Instead, it enriches them with the recognition that to harm another is, in a subtle way, to harm oneself. In the realm of work and ambition, the illusions of permanence and control often dominate. We strive to secure a future, to build a name, to etch permanence into shifting sands. There is nothing inherently wrong with ambition, yet when fueled solely by illusion, it breeds anxiety and restlessness. Integration means recognizing that while we cannot control the ocean of circumstance, we can align ourselves with its currents. A failed project, one seen as catastrophe, becomes simply another wave that rises and falls, teaching balance and resilience. Success, once clung to as an identity, is seen as transient but meaningful, a crest in the ongoing tide. The truth, lived in this way, invites us to work not from fear, but from alignment, not to grasp, but to flow. Even in suffering, integration reveals unexpected light. Pain often feels absolute, like a locked chamber with no exit. But when viewed through the lens of impermanence and interconnectedness, suffering transforms. The heartbreak that seems unbearable becomes part of the wider cycle of love and loss. Echoing the phoenix's fire, the illness that disrupts life's rhythm becomes an invitation to listen more deeply to the body, to realign with what truly matters. This is not to romanticize pain, but to recognize that when illusion is pierced, even suffering carries within it the seed of transformation. There is also a profound impact on how we see time. The illusion of permanence binds us to regret and anticipation, always regretting the past or grasping at the future. Integration of truth shifts us toward presence. The past is seen not as a fixed weight, but as memory flowing to the present. The future not as a rigid destiny, but as a field of possibilities. To live in this awareness is to inhabit the present moment fully, not as a fleeting instant between two voids, but as the very doorway into the real. Each moment, lived consciously, becomes a pearl strung upon the thread of eternity. On a societal scale, the implications are equally vast. Wars, exploitation, and oppression often stem from illusions of separation and control. This group versus that group, this nation versus that nation. To live the truth of interconnectedness does not erase difference, but reframes it as diversity within unity. Imagine economies shaped not only by profit, but by recognition of shared well-being. Politics guided not only by power, but by the understanding that no decision is isolated, that every action reverberates across the whole. Such visions may sound utopian, but every revolution of consciousness begins with individuals daring to live differently. Integration also touches the smallest details of life, those unnoticed moments where illusion is most convincing. Standing in line at a grocery store, one might feel impatience, the sense that my time is being wasted. But seen through the truth, even this moment is part of the whole, another thread in the shared tapestry of existence. The cashier, the strangers in line, the hum of electricity and the lights, all participate in the same dance. The impatience loosens, replaced perhaps by curiosity, by gratitude, by the simple recognition that even in the mundane, the truth shimmers. Perhaps the most practical implication is the freedom it brings. When illusions are taken as reality, we live in fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of death. But when the truth is lived, these fears soften. Death is seen not as an end but as a return, like the wave dissolving into the sea. Loss is seen as transformation, not annihilation. Failure is seen as movement within a larger unfolding. This does not mean life becomes easy or without struggle, but it means that struggle is reframed, no longer absolute, no longer defining the essence of who we are. In the end, integration of this truth is less about doing and more about being. It is the art of remembering, again and again, that the world is not only what it appears to be, that beneath the shifting forms is a vast stillness, a unity, a boundless consciousness. To live with this awareness is to walk gently, to speak with care, to act with clarity. It is to know that every gesture participates in the greater dance, and that the dance itself is both illusion and reality intertwined. At the end of this journey, when words have stretched themselves toward the horizon and symbols have carried us into realms that shimmer just beyond articulation, we arrive back where we began, in the immediacy of this moment, in the quiet recognition that truth is not elsewhere but here. The one truth that can shatter the illusion of reality is not a secret guarded in a temple, nor an equation buried in the annals of science. It is closer than breath, more intimate than thought, as inseparable from you as light is from the sun. To encounter it is to realize that what you've been searching for with restless urgency has always been the ground beneath your feet, the air in your lungs, the awareness reading these words right now. The illusions of separation, permanence, control, and identity are not enemies to be destroyed. They are teachers, necessary garments for consciousness to wear as it navigates the density of this human experience. To shatter them is not to discard them, but to see through them, to recognize their translucence. The stage remains, but you no longer mistake the play for the whole of reality. You participate more fully, more joyfully, because you know that behind the roles and sets lies the boundless creativity of life itself. In this light, transformation is not a grand event but a shift in seeing. It is the difference between looking at the world as a prison of circumstances and perceiving it as a canvas of possibilities. It is a shift from clinging to each moment as if it might be your last, to embracing each moment as if it were infinite, because in a profound sense it is. The now is the point where eternity breathes itself into form, and to recognize this is to live as though every instant were both fragile and eternal, fleeting yet complete. The practical call of this truth is deceptively simple: awaken. Awaken not in some distant future, not after decades of striving, but now. Awaken in the act of drinking water, feeling its coolness as part of the same ocean that moves in your blood. Awaken in the presence of another human being, seeing in their eyes the same awareness that gazes out from your own. Awaken in joy, in sorrow, in the ordinariness of daily chores, remembering that all of it is part of the dance, all of it infused with the same unbroken whole. To live this awakening is to embody compassion, because once you know the self and the other are not separate, how could cruelty remain? To live this awakening is to embody courage, because once you see impermanence as transformation, what is there truly to fear? To live this awakening is to embody freedom, because once the illusion of control dissolves, you learn to ride the waves with grace, no longer enslaved by the demand that life conform to your desires. Compassion, courage, and freedom, these are not ideals to chase, but natural fruits of the one truth when it is lived. And yet, transformation is not a final destination. It is a rhythm, a continual unfolding. There will be days when the illusion feels heavier than ever, when separation feels sharp, when fear tightens its grip. In those moments, remember that even forgetting is part of the path. The flame of truth does not go out when unseen. It waits, patient, ready to be recognized again. Each return is not failure but deepening, a spiral that carries you closer with every turn. So let this be the call. Live as though the veil is already thin, as though the world is both play and mystery, as though the truth has never left you. For in reality, it hasn't. Step into each day not as someone chasing after the real, but as someone remembering it. Let wonder be your compass, stillness your anchor, and awareness your home. In doing so, you do not merely think about the truth. You become its living expression. This is the invitation, the challenge, the gift, to let the illusion shimmer as it must, but to know it for what it is, to walk the world with open eyes and an open heart, unafraid of endings, unafraid of change, unafraid of death, because you know that behind every ending is continuation, behind every change is renewal, behind every death is return. You are not apart from this. You are it. The one truth that shatters the illusion of reality is not an escape, but a homecoming. It returns you to yourself, to life, to the vastness that was always here. It is the truth that makes the ordinary extraordinary, the fleeting eternal, the small infinite. Carry it not as a doctrine, but as a living flame. Let it burn away the fog of illusion when it descends. Let it guide you, not into some other world, but deeper into this one, until at last you realize there was never anything to shatter, because the truth was always here, shining through every crack, every shadow, every breath. This is the call, whispered across centuries, carried by sages, poets, and dreamers. Awaken to what is real. Not tomorrow, not one day now.